Hello, ladies and gents. This is Jamie Blosman, the host of the Femcanic Garage podcast. Welcome to the 5-part series of the dirty little secrets in the automotive and skilled trades industries. This blog series is brought to you by Chasidy Sisk Writing and Communication and Femcanic Garage. We have interviewed industry experts on topics related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're excited to share their knowledge and experience with all of you. Now let's get started. This week, we are exploring issues related to sexual harassment. We've decided to interview 2 industry experts on this topic. This interview is with Petra Schroeder. Petra is often referred to as the collisionista in our industry. After an automotive industry career of nearly 50 years, she retired several years ago, but remains active in the industry through her volunteer work with several industry organizations. Petra is passionate about women and men who make the automotive industry their home, and she's with us today to share her thoughts on how women can address harassment by stepping into their feminine power and without compromising who they are. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and we have Petra in the hot seat today. And, Chaz, it's hard to put into words how excited we are that Petra said yes, right? And she was the one person in this industry that when we went to go click publish, that we actually paused for a moment before we published, particularly week 5. The topic that we're going to be talking about today is sexual harassment. It's kind of a taboo thing in not just our industry, but I would say just about every industry. It's a scary topic for employers for various reasons and understandable reasons. And it's an incredibly hard topic for women and men for different reasons, right? But Petra is the one that we have such respect for, right, Chaz? That we just paused and and it's because we cuss and we definitely teetered on the line a little bit. So when we sent out the invite to you, Petra, we weren't sure if you were going to say yes or not. We were crossing our fingers and hoping you would. But we met a couple times previous to this, and you just wanted to make sure that Chaz and I were both okay with the fact that you didn't agree with how we approached or talked about certain things, but you respected the fact that we were tackling the topic. You just would have spoke about it a little differently. And that is the exact reason why we wanted you on this particular segment, because we want to bring in different perspectives, opinions to share with men and women and employers how they can handle things in different ways and still get great end results. That was a long drawn out to Petra. Thank you so much for being willing to do this with us.
No, thank you for having me. When I read the title of the blog, I was immediately almost mesmerized by it and thought to myself, I need to read this. And then I reached out to Chasidy and we had a few one-on-one talks. And, you know me well. Thanks for your respect. And I do the same thing. We have all our own personalities and lifestyles, and I'm very glad to be on this show.
No, the honor is ours. And I'm pretty sure moments after you guys hung up, I got a text message from Chaz.
I'm pretty sure it said something like, oh my God, Petra doesn't hate us. It's amazing.
Not that we thought you would hate us. It's just we have such respect for you, Petra, that, that we didn't want to offend you in any way. And we also wanted to dance on the line of being a little challenging and really getting people's attention. And sometimes to get people's attention, you got to smack them in the face. not literally,
no.
But you have to get their attention.
And you really got my attention this one. And again, me being born in Germany, I think I have a pretty good understanding of what this all means. As my bringing up or upbringing, I was raised very in the thought, say what you have to say, tell the truth, be honest. And so my understanding and approaching such a difficult subject is relatively easier. And through my career, my travel, I had the pleasure to travel a lot to I don't know how many countries and continents. So I have a lot of different cultures, views, and ethics almost. It's a variety of cultures that I got used to. And in the course of the conversation, I'm sure I will share probably a few more details. But let me say that before you approached me, I did not remember that things happened to me that I would call now sexual harassment. And when I thought about this, I was astonished, surprised that I was able to point 5 or 6 specific situations where this happened to me. Not the worst thing, but it happened to me. And I'm kind of glad that you brought this back to my memory. And it's in my personal cycle, in my business cycle, that I watched, observed what happened and how would I have handled this differently. And I wanted to make sure that everybody understands that what I'm saying is not the way how to handle situations. It's my way, and it's the way that brought me out of danger and that also let me survive and let me even forget what happened, unless or until you talked to me and brought this back to my memory.
Petra, I have to ask out of pure curiosity. You had mentioned that, well, exactly what you just said. It enabled you to, in essence, move on in such a way that you forgot about it,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? But I'm curious, when we asked you about this and you reflected and recalled these things, what was that experience like for you?
It's a loaded question. The easy answer is it was good to remember these things happened to me. It was good to remember nothing really, really bad happened to me because I had people that listened to me. I had people that I was able to open up to, my parents, and my parents never questioned what I said was the truth. So my first experience, I think when I was 9 or 10, was just that. I raised it to my mom. My mom talked to my dad, and we talked all together. And it was a family member that I thought touched me inappropriately. And I was protected from this particular person right then and there. We didn't go to file a police report, nothing like this, but I still felt I was able to talk. I was believed, and it went away. So I hope that gives you kind of a feeling. I was kind of relieved to be able to say I was one of these women. I was in that situation.
I think there's one key thing that you said in that sentence that I think uh, a lot of people may not understand the magnitude of it, is that you talked and shared, and here's the the aha moment I hope that people get, is that you were believed,
Yes.
right? That right there is so important that I think it's easy, for whatever reason, that little part right there is so easy to glaze over. And I say that because I'm not naming names, but in my personal life, friends and family members, there was a few stories that were shared with me where a family member had touched them inappropriately and their parent questioned them. It was, "Are you sure? No, they didn't mean it that way." Or, I think, it, it was kind of minimized. So I just want to draw attention to that. And for anyone who's listening, whether that's an employer or a parent, an aunt, an uncle, it's the believing part. And just that is so huge. And that changed that woman, that little girl that became a woman, that changed her life in so many aspects, where she carried some shame around it. She blamed herself for a long time. And it tells a story to women that, hey, I guess this is how I should be treated. Now, do I think that that parent that questioned their daughter is a bad parent? No, I don't. I think they genuinely loved, cared, want to protect their child. I think as parents, that's what we want to do. I think a lot of this is societal. In Petra, I know that you're going to talk a little bit about that, and I'm going to shut my mouth because I want to hear more from you, because you have such a diverse cultural background, to your point, where through traveling, through living, that you provide a very unique perspective, and you've seen and lived in and experienced different cultures.
Yep.
What's your take on that?
Yes, and the different cultures, it was easy at one point to say, if you go to a certain part of this world, and I intentionally do not mention any specific countries or continents, but if you go to specific areas, you would experience this particular culture. Because of many, many things, this is no longer the case necessarily. You will find these different cultures, different views, different values, different positions for males and females in a society, in a family, background, generations, ages, almost everywhere these days. So sometimes it's a miscommunication. Sometimes it's a non understanding what my own behavior does to somebody who is not exposed to my culture. And they are so ingrained in their own culture that this is really something that is dangerous. And I think we need to be open to more teaching what other cultures do and don't. Like, let's say in a certain country, I always reach out to do the handshake. In certain countries, that is an absolutely no-no. You don't do this. So one thing that I'm going to probably mention more than once.
Petra, can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
When you say in some countries, I don't reach out to do a handshake, just because it's, Women's History Month, I just want to clarify. Is it because you're a woman, or that's just anyone?
It's anyone. So
Gotcha.
I mean, in Japan, you do not reach out and shake somebody's hand. That's just not the Japanese culture. You bow in Japan. And there are certain types of how deep you bow and who you bow to and stuff. I don't want to go into these details, but if you don't know that a handshake is a no generally, then you might hurt somebody by just not respecting their privacy, their close, their closeness,
Their
their
culture and their
body,
beliefs.
their culture. Yes, yes. And this is in today's world, like I said, it's so easy. We have so many different people in a given space that is no longer a culture, it's a variety of cultures almost everywhere these days. And to navigate through difficult situations, I strongly believe that my travel and having to work with and having the pleasure to work with so many different people has helped me tremendously.
So I guess I want to kind of dive into what seems to be a question that a lot of people don't even want to touch with a 10-foot pole. and I'm going to ask the question because I think you set it up perfectly in clarifying that this is the way you chose to handle it for you. You're not saying this is the way everyone should handle it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think through people and women being willing to share their perspective and their experiences, it's one of those things where it gives an idea for other people to consider, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you define sexual harassment?
Again, this is another loaded question, not because of the sexual harassment piece, but it's sexual harassment can be many things. And it is really something that has a statement in like a legal aspect of what it could mean. But it can be a hand on a shoulder in one case where a person is perfectly fine with that. In another case where the same person or where somebody puts a hand on your shoulder, that particular person feels uncomfortable with it. And if she or he doesn't know how to stop that, that's where harassment starts. I can easily add where sexual harassment starts. If you make a point with your body language, with your facial expression, with your verbal, uh, with your verbiage, that you don't like this must be a no, and it must be respected immediately. So, sexual harassment, there's no such thing as there is a common case. This is what it means. It's all about going back to the culture. Are you used to being touchy feely? Are you kind of further away from other people? That has all to do with what sexual harassment means to some individual.
I think that's probably the best definition I've ever heard. Now, judges and juries wouldn't like it, right? Because they want things that are very black and white. If it's this, then that. But I don't think it's that simple,
No,
right?
it's not.
And I think, it's about consent.
Yes.
I mean, if we really want to boil it down to its most simplistic thing, and I think of my son, right? My son's 11 years old, and he likes pestering his older sister. She's about 2 years older, 2 years and 9 months to be technical, but typical sibling stuff, right? He goes in her room, and sometimes he just sits there and reads, but sometimes he's just picking, right? He's picking. And she will say, "Get out of my room. Get out of my room." Sometimes it starts off with the annoyance, sometimes she asks nicely, and then it just keeps escalating because he keeps ignoring it, right? And something as simple as that situation right there is where my partner and I started teaching both him and my daughter, right? Because she picks too. It's a sibling thing, right? About if someone tells you no or get out or, fill in the blank, you honor it.
Yes.
It's not a negotiation. It's not an option to ignore it, right? And and I think sometimes, people want like, okay, what do we do with this? This topic, this, air quote, heavy topic. I think it starts, quite honestly, when they're little.
Yes. And one thing that is very clear, and this is in all cultures, is the discipline and understanding and being taught what respect means. And again, the word awareness and the word respect are a very, very high sense in my life and have been for quite some time. And so, if you don't teach respect to somebody when they are willing to learn, they have a tough time learning this as an adult. So respect is really something that has to be taught, and this applies to your two children as well. If you don't respect your sister's wish, you shouldn't be in your room, and you should be disciplined by just getting out of this room and just don't do this again. Now, the question is to me whether, let's stay with this example, whether your daughter is expressing what she says and what she means also with her body language. So, in other words, if does she stand tall? Does she stand strong and confirms with her body language what the words mean that she says? Is that in unity? Does that match? Does your verbiage match your body language? If that doesn't, then you send a mixed message. The verbiage should still be very, very high in somebody else's opinion, but the body language has to match. Now, something that I learned early on was, and this is my father had night shifts. So we were at home. We could bring children home at every time, but we had to be kind of quiet. So I never raise my voice. If I get angry, which once in a while happens, the opposite happens of what
Petra, I
people
can't even
usually do.
imagine what angry looks like for you.
And I can only tell you, watch my eyes. My mouth will not smile, but watch my eyes. My eyes will not smile, and you can immediately get the message. Look into my eyes, and you know what I'm feeling.
I'm chuckling, Petra, because my partner's Puerto Rican, and when I first met her and I went to the first family event, her family event, I remember going and leaving, and she's like, "So what did what'd you think?" And I'm like, "Why do they all yell at each other?" Right? My family is of German descent as well. And we're pretty, my mom's pretty direct. My dad isn't as direct, but my mom is very direct. Here it is. Here's what you have. Put it out there. Um, but I remember leaving there like, why are they all yelling at each other? She's like, no one was yelling at each other. What are you talking about?
Yep.
And I'm like, my God, their volume's so high. like, and then here you are, Petra, and you're like, yes, I'm angry. And I'm like, that's just them talking regularly. And I think it's yelling. And then in your example that you're giving now, when you're angry, it's still not a high volume, which goes back to what you were saying before. A lot of this is cultural as well, and just making a little effort to understand that.
This is one thing, and I can appreciate the other view. In my case, I think I found the best way to get to somebody if they probably don't understand, if they can't hear me because they are yelling or they are saying swear words or whatever, bringing arguments on. And when you are angry, most people really raise their voices. I do the opposite. My voice is getting even less loud. And if you can't hear what I'm saying, you may stop talking. You may actually listen to what I'm saying. So, and don't ask me why I do this. This is just me. I'm not sure whether even somebody taught this or whether I just developed this and used it. My real experience is whenever there are difficult situations, you'll see me standing tall and strong, even though I don't feel this way all the time. And you will hear my voice very calm and very quiet. And I talk slowly. I never rush. I may rush when, I don't know, I speak Spanish some once in a while, but I do not rush when I talk, specifically not when it's something very seriously.
Petra, I want to backpedal just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about respect, right? And I want to go down that path just a little bit. What does respect look like and mean to you? I know what it means to you. Let me rephrase that. What does it look like? And I think, again, this is through your eyes. But when you were sharing and articulating very well, I mean, some of the best explanations I've heard, quite honestly, on this topic ever. But what is respect? Because I sat here and started this interview talking about how much Chasidy and I respect you. And I would never cuss in front of you. Now, do I cuss? I do. But out of respect for you, I never would in front of you. Even if I was out having a cocktail with friends and you were sitting next to me, I still wouldn't do it. And I had the same respect for my grandparents. Now, they never asked me to do that. I just picked up on the fact that they never do that in front of me. Therefore, I'm not going to do it in front of them.
Yeah.
And, but talk a little bit about that.
It's a great segue in some of the memories that came back again by thinking once after we talked and kind of in preparing for this audience here. I don't think I've ever asked for respect. Respect is what you earn. Respect is what you earn by doing things the right way. I'm not saying my way is the only right way, but respect is to be almost predictable. If you talk to me in a certain way, you can almost expect what my answer is going to be. I respect you for respecting me and saying she may not come to this audience, to this interview. So respect to me is also when we have a different opinion and we can talk about a subject, and I can ask you, I do not talk about this and this usually, but if we can agree to disagree and you don't try and convince me from your point of view, I won't do the same. I will do the same. Then we can talk about it and agree to disagree. This is also respect. Respect is also, and this may be a funny or a weird example. Through my travel, I had to eat by myself a lot. And most of the time, I would do this by sitting at a bar. Do you have a drink at the bar? Yes, you do. So, more than once did I hear across from the bar or next to me people, and I have to say mainly males, cuss. And I can overlook this and overhear this once or twice. When this goes on, and when this went on, I would either ask the bartender, could you please check with this gentleman over there whether he can kind of watch his language around me? I really don't appreciate that. If this happened to next to me, I would also ask, excuse me, sir, would you mind watching your language around me? I do not appreciate that. And the reaction in those cases, that this is not just once or twice, and this happened around the world, except once, I get the same response. I didn't know I did that. I apologize. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. So, again, awareness, respect, all of these are the same thing. If you address certain things in a respectful way, which if I want to have respect, I have to be respectful. That goes both ways. It can't go on only one way. If you want to be respected, show respect in all situations. And that goes in many, many ways of life. Many, many ways of life. And respect is something that my parents just brought very, very clear to me. You respect everyone that you get in touch with. Everyone, regardless of the we didn't talk about gender or anything like this. Regardless who you meet, you respect this person.
Petra, I want to, I guess, kind of an observation comment. My brain's just swirling right now because you're like Yoda. It just your insight and introspection. I just absolutely love. I think one thing that I picked up from you, and I think this is more looking for, I guess, the nod to see
Yes.
if I'm
Yes.
interpreting it right, is that it sounds like what you're setting are some boundaries, right? So that you're teaching people around you how you want to be treated. am I kind of?
I never looked at it this way, but hearing you say that, I think, yes, that's what it is. But I never looked at it this way. I just share my feelings and I bring them out to the open. And then I hope people would understand and respect it. But I never looked at it like you just did. I never looked at it this way.
The other thing that I picked up, now granted, clearly I wasn't there with you when you made these requests of the gentlemen around the bar that were cussing, is that setting boundaries or teaching people how you want to be treated doesn't mean that you have to be confrontational.
That is a very important observation, and I was going to say something to this effect. So when the person across the bar, I did not yell over there, hey, watch your language or whatever it is. I would either go to the person and politely say, excuse me, sir, or I would ask the bartender, would you help me to make this person aware that this is really not a good behavior, and would you help me stop it? But I would never,
Mm-hmm.
ever do something in front of a group, in front of their peers. I would always be respectful of, and there's this word respect again, respectful of their personality. I didn't want them to feel blamed. I didn't want to make them feel bad. They felt bad enough sometimes when I approached them. But again, except the one time, I was met with total understanding and almost apologizing. They didn't mean to do that. So
That's
it's a matter of again low voice or low volume voice, being polite, and trying to have a peaceful facial expression, even if you do not feel peaceful at that time, because it really is getting to you or getting to me when I hear this over and over and over again. But it helps.
it's interesting when you said that. I just I love reading books. I love constantly challenging myself to develop and grow. And I read about the phrase "fake it till you make it." Right? I've always hated that phrase. I just couldn't buy into that because I wasn't feeling it. Right? And I felt like everyone could see I wasn't feeling it, whatever it is. And that's when it became clear to me is that it's not about faking it till you make it, which is what you're kind of describing there, Petra, where it's like, even though maybe at that moment you weren't feeling peaceful, it's important, like what you said, for your face to be peaceful, right? So we're not creating unnecessary conflict. And it really goes to fake it till you become it is really the key there. And what I mean by that is you do so many things innately, Petra, that gurus, self-help gurus have created frameworks for and monetized it and created trainings and studied people like you. You were the study subject of these things. And the things that you are saying here is just innately who you are. And you've just never even thought about it. And you remind me of my grandfather a lot. When I interviewed him for the book that I wrote, Grandpa's Wisdom, I would ask him these questions, similar questions that I'm asking you, Petra. Maybe not on the topic of sexual harassment, but other topics, right? And he would describe what he does, and it's just who he is, right? And you are the same exact way, but yet your willingness to dig in and share that, right? To try to observe yourself in order to explain it to other people. You've probably changed more people's lives than you will ever know, Petra,
They,
just by being you.
maybe, and I was lucky enough, fortunate enough to be able to share or offer those views to employees, to industry friends, to everybody who wanted to talk about this by just sharing this is my experience. But this is how I felt about this. This is how I dealt with this, and just probably get them to think. And it is the bringing up the topic that is half of the battle. If you keep things in yourself, this is when it gets tricky at one point. Then you get to the point where shame or fear or confidence or you name it come so much towards you that you can't get over this and you can't find the beginning of what to say and to share this. All of these emotions come, anger, sadness, you name it. All of this comes the more you keep it inside and the more you think about this. And sexual harassment has another bad feeling by itself. It is not only your emotions, it also may be a physical hurt. It's the emotional hurt, but it's if you keep this inside, then it really cannot heal and you cannot get over it. Like I said, until you talk to me, I had forgotten about all of these situations that happened to me before. And by the way, there was, and I have to just share this, in a different culture where I had met this person long time ago in Western countries, and it was everything fine. This was the only time where I had to bring up this particular situation to my then manager, just because I was not sure whether this person would still be a customer of ours. And this was the only time I really brought it to someone's attention. Everything else basically was handled by myself. Looking back, I'm not sure whether this was the right thing to do, because I should have probably said something to the other cases to at least bring it to someone's attention. But at that point, I didn't feel it was necessary because I had handled it and I didn't feel it was strong enough or tough enough for me to handle it in a different way and bring it to somebody else's attention.
Now, I'm curious to get your take on this, Petra. You just shared that example, and I'm thinking, you know, I guess the evolution of how do we move through this and reduce the frequency of sexual harassment. Um, I, I guess thinking, what am I trying to say here? If when I hear that, like my knee jerk reaction to that, Petra, is, boy, I wish you would have brought those other cases up, because you are such a strong woman, and clear in your boundaries and direct, that those are kind of one of your many superpowers, where maybe it could have helped the woman who may not be as strong as you or as direct, but because you were willing to bring it up, that it may have helped other women. Now, I'm bringing this up not to place blame or anything, or to initiate any feelings of wrongdoing. That's not what I'm getting at. It's just that's kind of where my head's going, where listeners listening to this, is that, maybe we do need to bring these things up more.
Yes.
Not to make big deals
Yes.
about it, but if it happened to 4 women and all of them thought the same thing, well, I handled it, I'm not going to bring it up. It still happened to 4 different women.
Yes.
That's a pattern.
And this is where my afterthought comes in, saying I should have brought it up, just with exactly the same sense that you just mentioned, to help other women not to get into the same situation. On the other hand, it also would have helped me at the time had I understood more clearly what this particular culture was all about. And that's the piece where we are so global and so international these days, that getting out of our own comfort zone and learning, wanting to learn other cultures, other behavior, why people do things, and what the values are, what the views are, that is more important these days when we are really such a mix of people everywhere these days. And to understanding other cultures is very, very important and can help prevent things from happening, hopefully. But we are going back to us as women. I think we can do more by also opening up to other women and sharing our own experiences, and just say you're not alone, and here are some things that I would recommend for you to do, and if you feel like you need help, you can come talk to me. Don't be shy to open up to your spouse, husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever that might be. But talk about it, bring it out in the open, because again, if you keep it inside, you will think about it and think about it, and it's getting worse by the moment. And you will never ever talk about it because it's getting worse in your imagination, worse than what it probably has been. I don't know. Talk about it,
No,
bring it out.
the monkey mind, man, the monkey mind, for sure. I want to summarize, I think, the big nuggets. And when I go back and listen to this again, I'm probably going to be like, oh my God, there were 50 other ones that I completely missed. But I think if I'm a woman listening to this, and there's a couple different perspectives to this, right? But I'm going to speak from a woman's perspective here. What I'm hearing you say, Petra, and I again, I want to acknowledge that this is how you chose to handle things, and I acknowledge that. And I think you handle things like a woman of class, and I think most importantly, it is clear that you are well respected and taken seriously. And as a woman, I want to be respected. I want to be taken seriously, right? That makes sense to me. So I'm going to listen to you. But what I've heard you say is, one, communicate and teach the people around you how you want to be treated. And in doing so, it doesn't mean it has to be confrontational. You can make the request. We use the example of my daughter and my son. But your body language, your tone, everything has to match. If you're saying no and laughing and joking around and stuff, it creates confusion, right?
Yes.
And we have no business blaming a man when we're giving mixed messages.
Correct.
Now, if we are giving a clear message, and there's that consistency there, that request should be honored.
Absolutely.
Period. If it is not honored, your recommendation, and now that you have an opportunity to reflect back on your career and your life, your recommendation would be to say something. And saying something you saying something isn't necessarily asking your employer to fire anyone, or it may be as simple as just notifying them and saying, you know what, I feel good that I took care of this. I'm not asking you to do anything,
Mm-hmm.
but I do want to educate. I want to bring it to your attention that this happened.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why is that so important? You're not asking the employer to do anything. You feel that you handled it. So why bring it back up to the employer? Because if there's 3 other women that this happened to by the same individual, now there's a pattern,
Yes.
right? And there's no way for the employer to identify the pattern if no one's bringing it up, even if they're not being asked to do something
Right.
about it.
And this is a great script that you just said, that you should almost patent it and sell it. This is a script how to kind of address this tricky issue and just say, okay, this is what happened. I handled it. I don't know. You don't need to do anything, but I wanted you to be aware that this has happened and protect other women from the same thing. Now, going back to our situation where in the collision repair industry, and in the technical field in body tax, where this is really a big issue, I think we would be dismissed if we would not give some or talk about what can we as women do to pick the right environment, to select the right team, to select the right body shop, distribution, whatever that might be. And I think there are some signs that we can take as females and say, if I walk by or drive by this particular location, would I want to work there? If the answer is yes, then you find reasons why you want to work there. Is there signs that the shop welcomes females? Are there other females already working there? Ask for if you are seriously interested in a position there. Every well-run and well-managed body shops, and we have many of those, fortunately, but there are also others that I do not appreciate so much. Most of the well-run shops have an employee handbook, a manual, with all kinds of policies, from health insurance and sick days and vacation days and all of this. One part is and should be sexual harassment and the boundaries around it, what it means in that shop, when the consequences are, and have an open policy and encourage everybody, if you ever see something, I want to know about this. And it starts with leadership, and it goes from leadership all the way through the very, very last person in this particular shop. So if you are interested in a position, look for the signs that tell you this shop or this environment embraces women. They like women. If they are reading stats, then that means if you empower your employees, you will be successful. If you empower females, you will probably be even more successful because there is there are features that females have that complement what men bring to the table. So if you make those two genders work together, you have the best of both worlds. But you need to provide the environment that lets these spirits fly high and help you and your team get there. So there are some signs that female technicians can look for and maybe even go to the shop for like 1 or 2 days and work there. And if ever something happens, and I saw Chasidy, your top 5 or part 5 of 5, if I had to smile and I wanted to cry at the same time. If this ever happened and we have a technician shortage, why in the world would somebody stay in an environment that puts you down as a female, insults you, when there's other locations, other positions that really, really embrace you and want your knowledge, want your technical knowledge, want your female intuition to basically make a cohesive team of what you have. And again, I'm not condemning men. I'm not praising all the women. Together is really what we want to be. And there needs to be a common ground how to build the boundaries. And to me, in a shop, it's probably the employee handbook. And it should have a very important paragraph or capital on sexual harassment and what it means. And have training and make it aware. If you do something that violates any of these, there's no excuse. You are past. You are history. And if you have this stance, that does a lot for your own good and your team will go. So for female tax, there is a way to look at situations and get better, like instantaneously. People wait for you. People wait for the female tax. We have a technician shortage.
I mean, I'm speechless. I don't have anything. I got Chaz. Do you have anything else?
I'm sitting over here like I didn't think it was possible for me to admire and respect Petra more than I already did. and this just through the roof. I did want to ask Petra a question about a quote that she has shared with us before that we use. So in the series, when we published it last year, we included a quote. It is not attributed as coming from Petra. Again, we weren't sure how she would feel about the series, but it was a very strong quote. And actually such that it wasn't in one of the parts of the series. It's actually in the About Us section. So it's in all five.
Yep.
Petra, you know what quote I'm talking about. So do you want
Yes, I
to
do.
share that and maybe explain a little bit what that means to you?
Absolutely, yes. When I was in my, I think it was my late 20s, somebody very important in my life once said to me, never try to be a second class man, always be a first class woman. Well, at that point, I really had no clear understanding of what that would mean. Well, I learned by practicing what I think this means more and more, and the result was exactly what I wanted, even though I didn't know what result I was looking for. But in the way I was interpreting this sentence, which I still live by today, I can explain what it means to me and what I'm doing with this. So it starts with, and this goes back to Jamie, your introductory comments. It starts with language. I use classy language. Beside the fact that English is not my native language, but I use classy language. You will never hear me swear. Never. And when there was a time when I didn't know I was using a kind of swear word, and people looked at me like, is that you? Did you just say this? And I didn't know what it meant, really. It had a double meaning. I said, okay, that word is no longer part of my vocabulary. I'm not using this again.
Was it Petra, I'm so curious. Is it an English word or was it in another language?
No, that was an English word. Because it was in the beginning of my U.S. Stay here in 1995, 1996, where my English was not what it is today. And still today, I may use the wrong term once in a while, and that's fine. So it was
Chaz
English.
and I are trying to figure out what the word is, Petra.
I don't remember. I don't remember.
Okay.
If I do remember, I'll share this.
Okay.
So
I didn't want to ask because you said you didn't want to say it again, but I'm curious.
I can't even picture you saying like darn it. So
and I don't. I don't. And I can appreciate if somebody else has a different personality, but it's not me. It's not mine. And like I said before, I will not raise my voice. And my dear husband knows exactly what happens if I lower my voice. People around me know what happens if I lower my volume. The other piece is classy dress code. There is a place for sexy clothes. And this may be now coming from a grandmother's point of view, but I also had this grandmother view when I was 26 or 27. But the sexy clothes are not necessarily have a place or a time in business. I absolutely love to dress in a feminine way, but I don't think I've ever overdone it. And I have my accessories, but I just feel good how I dress. And the respect and not the respect, the response that you're getting is just confirming what I'm doing works.
And Petra, you're not saying to dress like not literally, not dressing masculine or male-like.
No, absolutely not. No,
I want to make sure people don't misinterpret what you're saying. What you're saying is you don't dress like you're going out clubbing.
Yes,
right?
yes.
It is professional. It's suits. Again, I wanted to make sure no one misunderstood what you said.
I think, Chasidy, you saw me in jeans about 4 weeks ago for the first time, right?
I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I was like, you're in jeans. Petra's like, yes, it doesn't happen often.
But there's nothing against jeans, but until a few years ago, it was not part of
Wardrobe.
my wardrobe. The other thing that I have to address here, because I see it too often and I cringe when I see it, it's alcohol can be a very, very, very bad enemy of us. And staying in control of ourselves at parties, whether it's personal parties, private parties, or industry parties or business parties, it really can be a serious and lasting damage to our reputation, to our respect. And once you lose respect and reputation, it's not a question of time when you get it back, it's whether you get it back. And I have to say something, and again, it's not from a grandmother's point of view. I said this when I was 26, 27, 30, and 40, and 50. If anybody thinks that the world is already a place with equal opportunities, that's not the case. We still have a way to go, all of us, but specifically females. And patience is one of the key words that everyone should remember. You cannot demand respect. You cannot demand to be acknowledged overnight. It is a process. Respect cannot be demanded. You have to earn it. And we as females can do a lot to get there and to improve, but it will not, like I said, happen overnight. And patience is something, and this is generations from generations is different. Some people want this immediate gratification. That's not the case with respect. You cannot demand respect. I can ask you, listen to me, and you listen to me and you do what I want you to do. That doesn't mean that you have to respect me. Respect is earned over a time. And this takes time, and it takes the same almost behavior. So you are predictable to people. They trust you. You have to be predictable to be trusted. You can't be a good guy one day and the bad guy the other day. You have to be somewhat the same. Enough said. But I had to kind of bring this in because respect, peace, and cannot be demanded is so important. It will come over time, but be patient.
All I can think to say is mic drop. I don't know. Chaz, is there anything else that I may have missed?
Yes.
I think that Petra covered it all beautifully, as she always does. And for anyone who doesn't know Petra, Petra truly is. There's 2 to 3 women in this world that I would consider like a lady, and Petra is one of them. So I am not.
Thank you so much.
I am who I am.
That's
And that shows mutual respect
Yes,
as well. And I think there's one thing, since we're talking about this, and Petra, you share your beliefs and views in definition around class and in all of these things, is that you're not judging Chaz and I. It's not a judgment thing for you. It's acknowledging differences in that you can still respect other people's point of view and approach.
absolutely.
And own it that that's not who you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And what a beautiful example.
And when Chasidy first talked to me, in fact, I think I approached you and basically said, "Do you have a little time to talk about this?" And so I had questions, and I don't know what you were thinking when I was asking you about this, whether I would just
I
beat
was
you or what.
shaking in my chair so hard.
I remember that phone call afterwards. Jamie, Petra came and found me and talked to me about them. I'm like, ooh, how did that go?
I still say or repeat one more time, sexual harassment is something that has to be taken very, very seriously. It has to be brought up to the table. Every time it happens, something should happen. Sharing it, it's a serious issue. It's not getting easier. And it is something that our management, our personal life, our everything should be aware this is happening every single day, maybe every single minute. And again, in my case, I had forgotten what happened to me. This brought it back. And let's share experiences and let's really do something about it. Awareness, awareness, awareness. And hopefully this will minimized and minimized and minimized. It's bad and it should go away.
Sexual harassment is darkness,
Yes.
and the only way to get rid of darkness is to shine
Yes.
light on it.
Yes.
The
Yes.
only
I
way.
like it this way you said that.
And I'll tell you what, Chaz, you can jump in whenever you want. Petra, that week 5, was the hardest week for Chaz and I to do. It brought up stuff for us as well. It brought up some stuff for me, to your point, Petra, that quite honestly I had forgotten about, and it shook me. And we almost didn't publish week 5 on time because Chaz had gotten her part done, but I just I couldn't do my part, which was going in and entering all the stuff and organizing everything on the actual website, because I had to like read through all the material again to get everything in placement, and I had to record my reactions to the quotes, and it was incredibly difficult because it was my own personal experience, and then I think about my daughter, and it frightens me to no end that it's quite honestly, it's not if my daughter will experience it, it's when.
And how well should you be prepared and to basically handle it
That's
in
right.
the right way and be open about it and have somebody to share and talk to.
And that's the hardest part about being a
Yep.
parent.
Yep.
You can't do anything about it other than, and it's a big deal, try to teach them and support them, but ultimately it's theirs to experience and deal with and handle. But oh boy, as a parent, you just want to fix it
Yep.
for them.
You can't.
You just
You
can't.
can't. You can lay the seed, and hopefully the seed will come strong and confident and just do the right thing when it's needed.
Yeah.
My bonus daughter, one of the last times that a boy in high school touched her inappropriately, she broke his nose. It, it would have been nice for her to have used her words, but my understanding is this wasn't the first time she had told this person to not put his hands on her.
Yep.
And she reacted the way that she reacted. And we had a conversation about that, but I honestly, I would rather her break his nose than, and possibly teach him a lesson that he doesn't continue to perpetuate the problem, as opposed to her shrugging it off and walking away and not saying
Yep.
anything. So
It's tough.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
tough. And that is that how Petra would have done it? No. Right? We know that. And there's a lot of different and tough situations. And that's the whole point of this. I don't think, to your point, Petra, there's only one right way. Right?
Correct.
And I think there's many different ways to handle things. The whole point of the blog series and this conversation today is to show different perspectives and different ways in which people have handled things. We're not here to sit here and say, this is the right way, this is the wrong way, because quite honestly, I'm still figuring this stuff out. I don't think I have it figured out. I don't.
I think the right and wrong way also depends on the situation.
And the person, who you are as a person. And that's ultimately, I hope the message that people get. Here are some ideas that have worked for different people. But I think the one thing that needs to stay true is, one, we all need to teach people how we want to be treated. And two, that if you say no and your message is consistent with body language, tone, all of it, that should be honored. And if it's not, say
Yes.
something.
Yes, wholeheartedly agree.
Petra, thank you so much for accepting our invitation, being vulnerable to not only get on here and talk about this topic that a lot of people were afraid to talk about and would dance around, but you also went back and had some reflection on your life and recalled some moments in your life because of us asking you to do this. And I just want to say thank you for your willingness to do it, because some people would run from that because it may be unpleasant. And there's a lot of people who try to run from unpleasant feelings instead of working through them. They try to go around them and avoid them. And yet another example of why I have so much respect for you.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. It's a tough topic, but I trust that it's going to help someone. If more than one, even better. But it really has to be out in the open, and ways to deal with this, and deal with this in a way that is good for everyone.
Thank you, Petra.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. By being open to learning more about these topics, you are fueling a movement that creates a safer and more inclusive environment for women in our industry. And for that, we thank you. It's up to all of us to keep this conversation alive. The only way to rid the industry of the darkness is to shine light on it. The entire 5-part blog series of the dirty little secrets of the automotive and skilled trades industries can be found on ChasidyRaySisk.com and Femcanic.com. Until next time, my friends.